The Bentley idled 3 blocks from the house Daniel Halls had bought with his first million. He stared at the peeling paint on the fence through tinted windows, his chest tight with an emotion he couldn't name. After 15 years of building an empire across 3 continents, sending money home every month without fail, paying for weddings, surgeries, school fees, and dreams that weren't even his own, he was about to find out what he really meant to them. "Sir, are you certain about this?" his driver asked, glancing nervously at the worn clothes Daniel had changed into at a rest stop. Daniel touched the frayed collar of the thrift store shirt. "Drive away, Marcus. I'll call when I need you." He had orchestrated everything carefully. Word had spread through the family network that Daniel's company had collapsed, that he'd lost everything in bad investments. His brother Michael had been the one to deliver the rumors, fed carefully through business contacts. The house in Switzerland, the properties in Dubai, the stocks and offshore accounts, all invisible now, hidden behind layers of legal protection. As far as his family knew, Daniel Halls was broke. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen connections that change lives, please like this video, comment your thoughts, and where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Arena. Your support keeps these powerful, true stories alive. He walked the 3 blocks on foot, carrying a battered duffel bag stuffed with old clothes. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Mrs. Chun still tended her garden next door. The Johnson kids still left their bikes on the lawn. But Daniel had changed. The man who left at 23 with nothing but ambition had returned at 38 with everything but certainty. His mother's house, though he'd paid off the mortgage 8 years ago, stood exactly as it had in his memories. He rang the doorbell. His mother, Patricia, opened the door. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Daniel." "Hi, Mom." He tried to smile. "Can I come in?" She didn't move to embrace him. "We heard about your situation." "Yeah." He let his shoulders slump. "It's been rough. I was hoping I could stay here for a while, just until I get back on my feet." Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. "Michael's in the living room, and your brother James is here with Susan." The coldness in her voice should have prepared him, but nothing could have prepared him for what waited inside. His brother Michael sat in the leather recliner Daniel had sent last Christmas, arms crossed. James and his wife, Susan, occupied the couch. His sister Rachel stood by the window, arms folded. The only person who moved when he entered was his daughter, Amira. "Dad!" The 16-year-old crossed the room in 3 strides and threw her arms around him. "I've been so worried. Why didn't you call me?" Daniel held her tight, breathing in the coconut scent of her shampoo. At least one person was happy to see him. "Amira, give your father some space," Patricia said sharply. "We need to discuss some things." Daniel's ex-wife, Jennifer, appeared from the kitchen. They divorced 5 years ago, but she'd remained close to his family, especially when the monthly checks kept arriving. "Daniel, so it's true then?" "It's true," he said quietly. Michael stood up. "Do you have any idea what kind of position you've put us in?" "I told my associates that my brother was good for the investment in my restaurant expansion. I used your name, Daniel. Your reputation. I'm sorry. Sorry, don't pay my bills." Michael's face reddened. "I've got contractors waiting on money I don't have because I thought my big-shot brother had my back." James joined in. "Mom's been telling everyone how successful you are, how you're some financial genius. Now she looks like a fool. I never asked Mom to." "You never asked?" Rachel's voice cut through. "You never asked, but you sure enjoyed playing the big man, didn't you? Sending us pictures of your fancy life while we're here struggling." Daniel's throat tightened. "I sent money every month for years. I paid for James's twins' private school. Rachel, I paid off your student loans. Michael, your restaurant wouldn't exist without." "And now what?" Susan interrupted. "Now, we're supposed to take care of you? We got our own problems, Daniel. James just lost his job. We can't afford another mouth to feed." The room fell silent, except for Amira's sharp intake of breath. Patricia spoke finally, her voice cold and measured. "Daniel, you're my son, and I love you, but you can't stay here. There's a shelter downtown. They help people who are going through transitions." Daniel felt something inside him crack. "A shelter? You want me to go to a shelter? What did you expect?" Michael said, You want to crash on Mom's couch? Take food out her mouth? We all have responsibilities. You're a grown man. Dad can stay with me, Amira said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. I have the guest room at Mom's apartment. He can stay there. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Amira, that's not. He's my father. Amira's voice rang with conviction Daniel had never heard before. I don't care if he's broke. I don't care if he lost everything. He's still my dad, and he's not going to any shelter. Daniel looked at his daughter, this fierce young woman who barely reached his shoulder, standing between him and his entire family. Tears burned his eyes. Amira, don't be naive, Rachel said. Your father made his choices. He gambled and lost. Why should that be our problem? Because he's family. Amira shot back. Isn't that what you all keep saying? Family takes care of family? Or does that only work one way? The silence that followed was damning. Daniel had heard enough. He'd come here to test his family's love, to see if they valued him for who he was or what he could give them. The answer was devastatingly clear. I'll figure something out, he said quietly. I'm sorry to have bothered you all. He turned toward the door, but Amira grabbed his arm. Dad, no. You're coming with me. As they walked out together, not one person followed. Not one person called them back. In Jennifer's compact Honda, Amira was silent for 3 blocks before the tears came. I can't believe them. I can't believe Grandma. How could they just turn their backs on you? Daniel reached over and squeezed her hand. It's okay, sweetheart. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay. She wiped her eyes furiously. You gave them everything. Uncle Michael's restaurant, Aunt Rachel's degree, the twins' school, all of it was you. And the second you need help, they treat you like garbage. Sometimes people show you who they really are, Daniel said softly. And sometimes that's a gift, even when it hurts. They drove in silence until Amira pulled into her mother's apartment complex. Mom will come around, she said, though she didn't sound convinced. Once she cools down, Daniel said nothing. Jennifer had loved his money more than she'd ever loved him. Their divorce had proved that, but he'd hoped foolishly that his blood family might be different. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel lived in Amira's guest room. He wore his thrift store clothes, filled out job applications at local stores, and played the part of a man rebuilding from nothing. Amira treated him with unwavering kindness. She shared her meals, asked about his day, and never once made him feel like a burden. Jennifer, after 3 days of icy silence, began to thaw, but only slightly. She allowed him to stay, but made it clear this was temporary. Amira has a big heart, she said one evening. Try not to take advantage of it. The word stung, but Daniel let them pass. His phone, an old flip phone he'd bought for the charade, rarely rang. Not his mother, not his siblings, not the extended family members whose children he'd sent to college, whose medical bills he'd paid, whose businesses he'd funded. Only Michael called once, asking if Daniel had any assets left that might be liquidated to help with his restaurant problem. When Daniel said no, Michael hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks became 3. Amira started her junior year of high school, and Daniel walked her to the bus stop each morning. In the evenings, they cooked dinner together, simple meals from the discount grocery store. She told him about her classes, her friends, her dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney. You'd be amazing at that, Daniel told her one night over spaghetti. I don't know how I'll pay for law school now, she said quietly. Mom says we need to be realistic about money. Daniel's jaw tightened. Another test passed. Even facing her dreams slipping away, Amira hadn't asked him for anything, hadn't blamed him, hadn't turned cold. In the 4th week, Daniel made his decision. It was time to end the charade. He called a family meeting, using Amira's phone to text everyone. Dad needs to tell you all something important, she wrote. Please come. Sunday at 2 p.m., Mom's place. They came, though Michael complained about missing a football game, and Rachel brought an air of martyrdom that filled the small living room. Patricia sat stiffly in the corner, barely looking at him. James and Susan were the last to arrive, 15 minutes late. Daniel stood in front of them, wearing the same worn clothes he'd arrived in weeks ago. Amira sat behind him, a reassuring presence. I need to tell you all the truth, he began. His voice was steady now, stronger than it had been in weeks. I didn't lose everything. My company didn't collapse. I'm not broke. Michael's head snapped up. What? I lied. I came home pretending to be poor because I needed to know something. I needed to know if you loved me for me, or if you only loved what I could give you. The room exploded. This was a test. Rachel's voice pitched high. You put us through this as some kind of sick game? It wasn't a game, Daniel said quietly. It was the most important question of my life. And you all answered it. Patricia stood, her face pale. How dare you judge us? We have our own lives, our own problems. I gave you 18 years of my life, Daniel interrupted. 18 years of sending money, solving problems, and funding dreams. I paid for your house, Mom, the one you wanted to throw me out of. Michael, your restaurant exists because of me. Rachel, your degree. James, your twins' education. I gave and gave and gave, and the moment I needed something in return, not money, just compassion, just a place to sleep, you turned your backs. We didn't know it was a test. Michael shouted. Exactly. Daniel's voice rose for the first time. You didn't know. That's the point. When you thought I had nothing left to give you, I became nothing to you. Silence crashed over the room. But there was one person, Daniel continued, his voice softening. He turned to look at Amira, who was crying quietly. One person who didn't care about my bank account, who fought for me, who stood between me and all of you and demanded that I be treated with basic human dignity. He walked over to Amira and placed his hands on her shoulders. My 16-year-old daughter showed me more love in 3 weeks than my entire family showed me in a lifetime of generosity. Jennifer stood up, her face flushed. Daniel, this isn't fair. You deceived us. I deceived you about my finances. You deceived me about your love. He looked at each of them in turn. And now you know the truth, and I know the truth, and we can all move forward with clear eyes. So what now? James asked, his voice bitter. You're rich. We're terrible people. And you're going to cut us off? Is that the message? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I don't know yet. What I do know is that everything changes from here. No more blank checks. No more being your ATM. If you want a relationship with me, it will be built on something real. Not what I can buy you. He pulled out his phone, his real phone, sleek and expensive, and made a call. Marcus? I'm ready for pickup. You're leaving? Patricia's voice cracked. I'm leaving. Amira. He looked at his daughter. Will you come with me? I have something to show you. She didn't hesitate. Yes. As they walked toward the door, Rachel called out, Daniel, wait. We could talk about this. We can. I'll be in touch, he said without turning around. Or I won't. I haven't decided yet. The Bentley was waiting outside, Marcus holding the door open. Daniel saw the shock register on his family's faces as they watched from the window. Where are we going? Amira asked as they pulled away. Somewhere you can make a decision, Daniel said. I have a house. A real home. Big enough for both of us, if you want. You'd have to change schools, but it's a good district. Better than here. You'd have your own space, privacy, everything you need to focus on your future. Amira stared at him. You want me to live with you? I want you to have the choice. You stood by me when I had nothing. Now I want to stand by you when you have everything. He paused. But only if you want to. Your mother has custody. We'd have to work it out legally, make sure she's comfortable with it. But Amira, you saved me these past few weeks. You reminded me what real love looks like. I want to give you the world, but more than that, I want to give you the truth. Always. No more tests. No more games. Just honest love. Tears streamed down Amira's face. I don't care about the house or the money, Dad. I just want to be with someone who doesn't change when things get hard. Daniel pulled her close. Then we're going to be just fine. 6 months later, Daniel stood in the living room of his estate, watching Amira practice her debate arguments for the state championship. She transferred to a top private school, made new friends, and thrived in ways that made his heart ache with pride. Jennifer had agreed to shared custody after Daniel offered to fund Amira's entire future college, law school, everything with the condition that he remained fully involved in her life. Jennifer had seen the wisdom in not fighting. His mother called once a week now, tentative and apologetic. They were rebuilding slowly. Michael had sold his restaurant and sent a letter of apology, asking for nothing. Rachel had reached out to say she was in therapy, working on herself. James remained distant, proud, unwilling to admit wrong. Daniel had set up trust funds for all their children. His nieces and nephews didn't need to pay for their parents' mistakes. But the blank checks were gone. The unlimited access was over. If they wanted his help, they would ask as equals, not as dependents. Because Daniel Halls had learned the hardest lesson of his life. Wealth without wisdom is just currency, and family without loyalty is just biology. But real, tested, proven love that was worth more than every dollar in every bank account he'd ever owned. And he'd found in the fierce, loyal heart of a 16-year-old girl who'd stood up to everyone she knew and said, simply, "He's my father, and he's not going to any shelter." That was the moment Daniel Halls stopped being just a millionaire. That was the moment he became truly rich. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted, and that even broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena, because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were his family or his daughter. Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? We'd love to hear your story.